Listen, I was the Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. I understand their concerns. I understand their frustrations. But we have a Constitution that we abide by, and we're going to live by. And that means we got separate and equal branches of the government. And whether people like it or not, Barack Obama is going to be the president for the next 2 years. We've got to find a way to hold him accountable and try to find common ground to get things done on behalf of the American people.
With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth, back with you on America's Forum. And Miranda, when I hear Speaker Boehner say he was Tea Party before there was Tea Party, I think back there was a country song, I was country before country was cool. Some Tea Partiers might take issue with that.
I bet. Not surprised.
Well, why don't we bring in one of my pals? I didn't get a chance to serve with him on Capitol Hill, but I know he's Tea Party through and through, a good conservative. Jeff Duncan, Republican of South Carolina, member of the House Committee on Homeland Security, Skyping in from Northern Virginia, where the conservatives are having a retreat, which we'll really call an advance. Or I think that's what a lot of folks want to see. Jeff, it's great to have you this morning. And I got to talk to you about the Speaker wanting to go back to court again. Why go to the courtroom? You guys are legislators.
Yeah, you know, we need to legislate. For too long, for 4 years I've been in Congress, we blamed Harry Reid and the Senate for not being able to get anything done. But now we have the Republican Senate in control, and so we actually need to pass legislation to the president's desk and force him to either veto it or sign it into law. If he signs it into law, at least we'll get Republican legislation done. But America will see the dichotomy between progressive Democratic presidency and governance and what Republicans can do if we govern. And I think that'll help us in 2016. And so, JD, I believe we need to pass bills. And we sent a letter to Senator McConnell asking them this week, when you finish the Keystone Pipeline, thank you for bringing that up and hopefully voting on it. But when you finish that, how about bring up the DHS appropriations bill that we passed out of the House? Let's show America that we're listening to them, and let's stop the president's executive amnesty. That's the next thing on the table for the Senate, and they need to get to work on that next.
And let's talk about that letter. I'm going to read it if we could. We believe that Senate Republicans must honor the promise they made to the American people last year to stand firm against the president's lawless actions and preserve Congress's constitutional role as a law-making body. How long did it take for you to draft this up?
Well, you're exactly right. There's a constitutional separation of powers between branches of government. We're supposed to legislate. We're supposed to make law. He's supposed to enforce the law and not try to make law unitarily on his own, out of the executive branch. And so this is an important constitutional time in American history where the legislative branch has got to reassert its authority to make law, to show America that we listen to them. We don't want to see an imperialistic president try to make law on his own and try to do things without Congress. We're the people's house. We heard their voice, and I think it's important for the Senate to take the next step in this and actually pass a bill to the president's desk.
So, Jeff, here we are, about 1:30 remaining in this segment, though you're graciously going to stay with us through the break. Let's speak candidly about that other chamber on Capitol Hill and our fellow Republicans in that chamber. Do you expect Leader McConnell to, in fact, accede to your wishes on bringing up the House version of funding for Homeland Security that, of course, defunds immigration? Do you expect that to happen?
I really do. The American people spoke loudly, gave them the control of the Senate, but it's a hard deadline of February 27th, and the DHS funding will expire. So they've got to bring something up, JD. Why not bring up the House bill? It's already passed the House. Half the hurdle's been done. So bring our House bill up. I think they can get the number of votes, at least the Republican votes, to pass it. Now, whether they can overcome the 60-vote requirement for cloture is yet to be seen. But the American people have spoken loudly, and I think they need to continue to speak. I would encourage folks to call the Senate, call their senators, and say, hey, allow this bill to come to the floor, and let's have an up or down vote on what we believe about executive amnesty, and let's send this bill to the president's desk. And so I hope they will take that up and get to work.
Jeff, I don't have to tell you, with 20 seconds to remain, there's a suspicion that Speaker Boehner, Leader McConnell are kind of slow walking this thing because the Washington establishment is cool with the president's amnesty. They may not love the way it's done, but it's in effect. Can you disabuse me of that notion in 20 seconds?
Well, look, JD, I didn't support the criminalist bill. I thought this was a very weak hand for us to play. We had so many cards in the deck. back in December, on December the 11th, when we were working on the expiring CR. But we have gotten to this point, and so we've got to use the best hand we have, and that's the DHS funding bill. We have an opportunity to send something to the president's desk. For the first time, he'll have the opportunity to veto something or pass it into law.
We're bringing you right back. Jeff Duncan, stay with us. You stay with us, too. There's more straight ahead. With Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth, let's continue our conversation with Congressman Jeff Duncan of South Carolina, a member of the House Committee on Homeland Security and the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Skyping in from Northern Virginia, where the conservative retreat is going on. Of course, we should point out, I guess, your counterparts, the Democrats, are up in Philadelphia, but we'll stick with your agenda, Jeff, if that's okay. Sorry to cut you. Absolutely, sir, and sorry to cut you off during that break. But I just have to know something about this. Basically, you're playing the hand you're dealt. But do you understand the skepticism? Are you hearing it from your constituents about where we're headed with illegal immigration and concerned that the leadership is really kind of connected with the Washington establishment and not hearing from the grassroots?
Yeah, folks in South Carolina don't want to see us grant citizenship rights or any other rights to folks who broke our laws to come here. They understand we're a sovereign nation, but they also understand that we probably at some point need to have a conversation about legal immigration, but we can't do that when our southern border is so porous. So we need border security. We need rule of law. We need to address the catch and release provisions that President Obama is utilizing. And so we have immigration and customs enforcement laws in this country that says you can't cross the border illegally. If you do, you're repatriated back to your home country. You've broken the American sovereignty. And so that rule of law needs to be enforced. It needs to be a part of border security. I hear from my folks in Arizona, secure the border. And there's this whole constitutional debate about what states can do. What can Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas do on their own to secure their international border? And I had a conversation just last night with Paul Gosar about this very issue. He's passionate about border security in Arizona, really enforcing their own laws. And so we're going to see this whole constitutional debate continue to play out between the states and the federal government, I believe, on an ongoing basis.
Congressman, we were talking about it earlier during the last break about House Speaker John Boehner calling himself the Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. How would you judge his performance?
Well, you know, there's a movement within the conservative base within the Congress to try to do whatever we can to push the conference more to a conservative position.
Is he conservative enough on the issue?
I'm sorry?
Is he being conservative enough on the issue?
To be more conservative on the issue, whether it's immigration or whether it's spending or whether it's debt or whether it's return to constitutional government. So working within the machinations of Congress, we have the Republican Study Committee, but you also see an emerging group of the Freedom Caucus of about maybe 35 or 40 or more members that say, you know, RSC is not as conservative as it has been in the past, and we really need a more concerted effort to push policy. So you're seeing a lot of things go on within the conservative base in Congress right now.
Well, your other committee assignment, in addition to Homeland Security, is International Relations, Foreign Affairs there with Ed Royce and Ileana Ros-Lehtinen and others. And one move that Speaker Boehner made, I think a lot of conservatives cheer, but the Washington establishment doesn't seem to be happy about, that's the invitation extended to Prime Minister Netanyahu. How do you think that is going to play out in the days ahead? We have about 1:30 left in the segment.
I applaud the speaker for doing that and invite Prime Minister Netanyahu to Congress. It's our house. We ought to be able to invite whoever we want. There's been this precedent of the White House being involved in that invitation, but the White House has this one wrong. We see what President Obama is doing with encouraging folks to go and campaign against Netanyahu in Israel. I think that's absolutely wrong. And so I applaud the speaker. I stand behind him. I want to see Netanyahu speak to the Congress and speak to the American people about the real situation in Israel. And let me just say, I stand with Israel 100%, and I will never waver on that.
30 seconds left. Loretta Lynch, those hearings in the Senate. Jeff, your take on that?
I'm sorry, repeat that, JD?
The Loretta Lynch hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee for the Attorney General job. What is...
Yeah, I hope they don't confirm her. I'm not sold on her. And I believe she's probably as bad or worse than Eric Holder. So I encourage my senators and others to vote against the confirmation.
All right, Jeff Duncan, Skyping in from the Heritage Conference of Conservatives there in Northern Virginia. We thank you very much for your time. And speaking of Loretta Lynch, I might have some comments about Ms. Lynch.
I'm sure you do.
Maybe after the break. It's called The Way I See It, and you'll see that following this time out here on America's Forum.